Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the Italy Startup Conference 2022. My name is Adam, founder of Startup Network Europe. I'm from Ireland. I'm in Dublin right now, but actually amo Italia. I lived for 2 years recently in Italy, in Torino, but also in Catania, Palermo, and Napoli. So I really love Italy and it's an honor to host this event today as a result. Startup Network Europe, very briefly, we host online conferences for European startups in Ireland, in Sweden, in Germany, in the UK, and now in Italy, which I'm very happy about. We also have started to do face-to-face events. Last week, we did an event in Amsterdam with 150 startups and investors. And on Thursday, we did one in London with 300. So it's fantastic to see the world opening up again, and hopefully we can do a mix of face-to-face and online events from now on. Later in this conference, I will announce the Rome Startup Conference 2022 and also the Milan Startup Conference 2022. These will happen in November. They'll be free to attend events, and we expect hundreds of people in each one. We also have communities, which we will share in this conference. We have a Telegram group called Startups in Italy and a Discord group called the European Startup Community. Now, our plan for today is very simple. It's a 2-hour, 90-minute event, actually, 90-minute event with 26 speakers in 90 minutes. These include leaders of associations in the startup ecosystem, founders and CXOs, in Italy, but also in the United States. We have Italian people in New York, in Silicon Valley, who have expanded abroad or moved abroad. And finally, we also have VCs and angel investors in this conference. Now, very briefly, we have 2 sponsors in this event. The first is Personio, the HR operating system. They are HR software for startups and SMEs, which helps improve operational excellence to pave the way for strategic work to shine. That means accelerating daily work, reducing administrative chaos, and ensuring that every core HR process works like a dream. Twilio is our next sponsor. They are a cloud communications platform used by millions of startups to engage with billions of customers around the world. Using their APIs, software developers can make and receive phone calls, text messages, and many more other communications. And today, the attendees of this conference can actually apply for free credits via the Twilio Startups program. Now, to move on, the conference is about to begin. Our first section will have 2 people, Cristina, who is president of InnovUp. She is also founder and CEO of Marshmallow Games. And we also have Pierluigi. He is co-founder and CEO of Genenta Science and a board member of InnovUp. Before we begin the conversation about the Italian startup ecosystem, I want to talk a bit about the current situation in Italy. So Italy has at least 10,000 verified startups according to dealroom.co. As you can see, the growth has been incredible, not just 10 years ago, but also compared to 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Funding was almost $2 billion last year alone, and this year looks like a record year. However, although these numbers look very good, it's very similar to Ireland. Ireland has a population 12 times less than Italy. So we can see that things are getting better in Italy, but at the same time, there's so much potential, so much growth that we can look forward to. So we're going to start with the conference now. And we're going to start with a chat between Pierluigi, myself, and Cristina. And very quickly, Cristina, can you explain what InnovUp is?
Yes, hi everybody. So InnovUp is the Italian association representative for all the Italian ecosystem. So we represent startups, incubators, accelerators, and also all the habilitators, for example, all the professionals that work with startups, and all the corporate that works with the startups with the open innovation.
Great. And Pierluigi, could you please introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I'm Pierluigi Paracchi. I'm the CEO of Genenta Science and member of the board of the Italian Association of InnovUp, no? That is Cristina just described. Genenta is a startup company, is a scale-up company, because now we are listed on NASDAQ, and we are developing a cell gene therapy strategy to treat tumors.
Great, thank you. So, Cristina, the first question is for you. As president of InnovUp, we've mentioned that Italian startups raised $1.8 billion in 2021. That is 5 times more than what was raised five years before. So in your opinion, why is Italy a good country to set up a startup in, and how can the Italian startup ecosystem be improved?
Okay, so Italy is a good country to set up a startup in for many reasons. One of these reasons is that in next years we will have a lot of public funds that will be certainly good for the whole ecosystem. So the PNRR counts 18 billion euros that will be spent until 2026 in innovation in general. And in the PNRR are included 2.5 billion euros that we will spend in investment in startups and SMI. So in 2020, Italy reached 1.5 billion euro in investment. That for us is a great record, differently from all the other international and European ecosystem. So we registered a positive increase from the first quarter of 2021 and the second quarter, the first quarter of 2022 of 35%. Another great thing in Italy are the tax advantage from the fiscal point of view, even if from the bureaucratic point of view we are quite complex. So these are all the reasons why it could be great to set up a startup in Italy. But our ecosystem have to be improved like all the others. But in Italy, for example, there is a big gap with all the other European ecosystem. For example, the size of our ecosystem is 1/8 of the French one, 1/6 of the German one, and 3/4 of the Spanish one. So we have to improve something. For example, one thing that we need to encourage is the help from corporate or big company in general, consolidated big company that could help startups, for example, new high-tech startup, not only with funds, but with the know-how that could help them to grow. Another point of the Italian ecosystem that could be improved is the approach of the venture capital, the Italian venture capital, that could start helping startups investing in different realities as minority stakeholder with the risk, the business risk, the investment risk that is related with, and they will start to help them to help them. So another thing is that at the international level, so we could collaborate more closely with all the European countries, for example, with PAN agreements that could help countries like Italy to close B and C rounds, for example. And another thing is that in Italy we could create a funds of funds. So to recapitalize all the funds that are working well, and so to create a real internationalization of our finance ecosystem. So other two things, two big gaps in Italy, gender gap and the north-south gap. So the gender gap is not a gap related only to Italy, but it is a problem worldwide, I think. And so imagine that only the 7% of the European startups are guided by women. The 29% is guided by a mixed team, and the 64% is guided by only male team. It's a big problem in Italy. We are doing a lot of things. There are funds only for female, but it is not enough. And about north-south gap in Italy. Imagine that in 2021, almost the 70% of the investment in startups have been done not in the north, but in Lombardy, only in the region of Lombardy. And it is very, very strange because it creates a gap very, very big between north and south. It is an historical gap, but we need to do something. We need to do something in the next years.
Okay, thank you, Cristina. And next up, Pierluigi. So you are co-founder and CEO of Genenta Science, the first Italian biotech to be listed on the NASDAQ. Now, since 2015, you have raised over $30 million in 3 different rounds. So can you tell us maybe what Genenta Science is and basically your journey to getting that fundraising in 3 different rounds?
Thank you, Adam. So we started as a spin-out from San Raffaele Hospital, that is the leading Italian research center and one of the best places in the world in terms of track record in cell and gene therapy strategies. And we started in 2014, and the co-founder, also the hospital, the University of San Raffaele is part is one of the co-founders of the company, together with the key scientists that are behind the science that we are developing. Even if there were not funds specialized in biotech in Italy in the 2014 and 15, we were able to raise money with the support of top Italian banks that is named Mediobanca, and we raised money from entrepreneurs, high net worth individual, family offices, and that was sufficient to close the gap that also Cristina mentioned about the lack of venture capitalists. So we raise every 2 years, we close around Series A in 2015, 2017 the Series B, 2019 the Series C, for a total of 33 million euros. And then 2 years after, so that means that as a CEO, I've done a lot of job to launch every 2 years, let me say, a capital increase. In 2021, we went public on NASDAQ, and we are the only Italian company listed on the tech market of the world, and we raised other $37 million in an upsides IPO on NASDAQ in December of the last year.
Yeah, now both of you are co-founders of your own companies. How did you meet your co-founders and decide to do a business with them? Are they very different people?
So from my point of view, so my co-founders are my partner, my brother, and 2 friends of mine. So I've done all the things that all the books are recommending not to do, but it's very strange. But I'm very lucky. But I think that the truth is that I choose at the beginning of my company the right people, so skilled people with different skills, and I think that another very important component is the trust. So it's the big trust that is between us, and so I think that this is one of the biggest thing of Marshmallow Games, that is my company.
Great. And Pierluigi, your co-founders, did they have very different skills?
Yeah, they have different skills, and I decided to move from the dark side as a venture capital to the bright side of the entrepreneurship in 2014, because for more than 10 years I ran a VC firm here in Italy, and I was lucky because maybe I also did some good job, because in 2013 one of my company, another biotech company, was acquired by a company listed on Nasdaq for more than $400 million US. So when I met Luigi Naldini, that is the co-founder of Genenta, the scientist, the science part of my company, I was in a particular moment of my working life, because after an important exit, it was necessary for me to decide what to do next. And the idea to enter in a collaboration with the top scientists that they are in my country in a so advanced therapy like cell and gene was so amazing. The idea that was great to start this skill. And anyway, I like to say that I'm the lower in terms not only on age, but also from the title in my company, because they are all PhD professor with a career longer than me, that I'm only a poor financial guy, and this is something that can create and is creating a lot of value in Genenta.
Great, and I'll have one more question. Unfortunately, we have to end. How important were your first hires in setting up the company culture and its success?
So can I start? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So our first hires were very, very important fundamentals. It's normal, no? But I think that every hire is very important since today, because every new component of the team could broke the balance. The balance that we created in a lot of years, and so we dedicated a lot of time in hiring and to choose the right people that could fit in our team, because we are a big family, and so we need to choose very well all the components.
Great, and Pierluigi?
As you know, Adam, is not easy, and also Cristina said, to build a great team, especially when you are at the beginning of the story. So the first person that we hired was our former chief operating officer, and she arrived from a big pharmaceutical company, and after 1 year we commonly understood that was not the right person for a startup. So it's tough. It's complicated. It's complicated to attract talent, and it's complicated to keep talent motivated in a company. And not every time that you make a new hire is the right one, but it's experience, And after that, my capability to choose the right person really changed, and now we have maybe the strongest teams ever in the biotech field.
Great, brilliant. Well, thank you both very much. We're going to move on to our next section now. Cheers, grazie. Ok, ci vediamo a Milano, a Roma.
Vieni a Bari.
Bari, yeah, I've never been. I love the south of Italy. Okay, thank you guys. And I'll very briefly introduce our next speakers. Francesco is Director General of Italian Tech Alliance, and then Tarek is co-founder, partner, and CTO of StartupGym. So guys, if you could briefly introduce Italian Tech Alliance and StartupGym, we can get started.
Sure. Italian Tech Alliance is an association that's been founded with a different name, VC Hub Italia, by some of the most important VC of the Italian ecosystem, and it has then enlarged its basis also to include some of the most important startups. We are now approximately 250 members, among which investors, startups, and service providers of the ecosystem. What we try to do, to make a very long story short, is to provide to the legislators some suggestions in order to create a better legislative environment for those who want to invest and to enterprise in startups in Italy. We want, obviously, to attract more investors, therefore more investment in the Italian ecosystem. And lastly, we try to create some connection in order to create better business opportunities for members, and not only for members, Adam.
Okay, and Tarek, StartupGym.
Thanks very much for organizing this. Yeah, so I'm a co-founder and CTO of StartupGym. StartupGym is a startup studio based out of Milan. We've been operating for a little under a year now, and our model is one where we help founders find the ideas of their next startup that they want to build, help bootstrap startups through the early stages and get the MVP into the market, validate the idea in the market, and ultimately help our founders successfully raise a pre-seed round and launch their independently successful startup. So our objective is really to help continue to bootstrap the Italian startup ecosystem and bring an impact larger than just what our startup studio is able to create.
Thank you. And Francesco, my first question is for you. How can we bring more investors into Italy?
Yeah, that's a big question, Adam. I think that's when we look at the Italian ecosystem, and Cristina said it perfectly before, there is a glass. In Italy, we say that every glass, you have to look at it and to look at it half full or half empty. As we said before, in Italy, we had 1.2 billion euros invested in 2021. Italy, as you may know, is the third economy of the European Union, the fourth economy of Europe, including the UK. It is not possible that when it comes to investment in innovation, it is ranking at number 10 in the EU. What we need to do, there are a lot of things. First of all, I think that we need to change, and that's what we are trying to do with the association, the narrative that's behind doing startups in Italy. Too often, I would say almost always, startups are seen by the public opinion, by the institutions, and by large investors, such as institutional investor or corporate, as the enterprises of tomorrow, the enterprises that will arrive sooner or later. What we are trying to strongly say is that startups are the enterprises of today, since today they do create jobs, they do create growth, they do create business opportunities. This is something very important to underline, because I guess that one of the reasons of our lack of investments is the fact that there are not a lot of institutional investments in Italy, and corporates do not do corporate venture capital as they do in foreign countries. Obviously, Adam, once we will be able to involve more institutional investors and corporate venture capital in innovation in investment in startups, it will be easier also to attract more international investors. But to be positive, I have to tell you that we have seen the page turning in the last couple of years. The situation is better and better. We are pretty confident that 2022 could be another breaking record year after 2021. The result of the first quarter of 2022 are very positive. We are more attractive for international investors. We are more attractive for corporate and for institutional investors. Obviously, also the effort that have been made by the institutions do help us in this sense. As you may know, there has been a European NextGenEU, European Recovery and Resilience Fund, that has, among the many other things, directed 2 billion euros in venture capital that will be deployed in the next year. And obviously, they can be one of the factors that will help Italy to become a more important player in innovation in the EU.
Great, and actually, I've just shared a couple of polls while you were both speaking, and I'm going to actually share it with everyone now. So in terms of investment, 58% of people in this conference are looking for investment, which is a huge amount, more than half the people, obviously, and not even everyone is a startup here. Most startups I can see are at ideation or pre-seed stage, but we also have some Series C and Series A and B too. So that's the first thing that I can share with everyone here. The other thing that I can share is location. So earlier, Cristina talked about the fact that there's a huge concentration of startups in Lombardy, especially Milan. And we can see it here to an extent. 34% of attendees are in Milan. There's actually a good mix of elsewhere too. And in terms of attendee roles, yeah, we got nearly half the people here are founders. We have a lot of investors and venture capitalists, and most of you are from small companies, but Some of you are from very, very big companies as well. So thank you everyone for joining. Now, Tarek, this is kind of a universal question, not just an Italian one, but I talked to Italian startups and they're amazing. They're so smart. They know how to do this, but they have no idea normally where to go, who to talk to about investment. So what would be your number one tip about that?
So, I think looking specifically at the Italian ecosystem, especially, I come from a decade or so in Silicon Valley. So a lot of what I see in the Italian ecosystem is new to me, and I get to kind of compare and contrast. And I think one of the important things about opening the door to more investors is to think big, to think of ideas and work on projects that are not just purely based in Italy, but have the scope to grow externally. Doing that not only will lead to greater success for your own venture, but will attract investors from abroad who are looking for larger scale projects and larger scale successes to their investments. I think another thing that I've seen as a common element is that startuppers look for investments before they've even validated their idea, before they have something concrete to be able to show of actual value. There's a lot of time that's just spent on kind of boilerplate stuff and getting a startup going, the legal stuff, getting the brand and getting all of these things. But this attitude of just getting things done and creating value and being able to then quickly in a short elevator pitch, show your true value to an investor, I think is something that startups really need to work on. And, it's one thing that, at StartupGym that we're trying to help our startups with and really, get that boilerplate stuff out of the way so that they can focus their true effort on just creating that value and then being able to open the door directly with that value with the investors. And I think the last thing that you see in more mature startup ecosystems is that there's a lot more of a willingness to share information and contacts between startups and between investors. I think building a tight-knit community is super important because maybe a deal is not going to work out for you, but it might work out for another startup. And there's no reason to kind of keep that information for yourself. It's better if we all grow together than if only one or two companies are successful in that pool. And so that's something that I think needs to happen quite a lot more in the ecosystem.
And a final question for you both. Do you think Italian startups should look for funding in Italy or from abroad?
You want me to take it, Tarek?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yep, you can go for it.
Everywhere, I would say. I would say everywhere, but I would add that now it is.
Oh, I think that's Francesco's
money
connection.
in Italy.
Okay.
Because of the fact that there are money, because of the fact that there is a lot of talent around the country, and there are a lot of investments that are willing to contribute to what has everything to be a kind of renaissance for European, for Italian innovation. Then obviously the fact that the ecosystem is growing is also bringing more interest by international investors. But if I can build up a bit on what Tarek said, I fully agree with him on the relationship between founders and investors that in Italy is sometimes a bit critical. In my view, it is very important for founders to understand that whenever an investor puts money in a startup, he is not putting only, he or she is not only putting only money, but also network, reputation, time. Therefore, I think it's important for them to understand that the investor has to be the best friend of the founder whenever an investment happens. Sometimes in Italy, there is still a situation for which some startups tend to look at investors as kind of counterparts, as kind of enemies. And this is something that's not really happening in other ecosystems. And hopefully it will happen less and less also in Italy. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Francesco. And Tarek, I will let you take that question.
Yeah, so I definitely think that the startups need to look globally for investors for the reasons that Francesco mentioned. But I think one thing that you see is also the investment philosophy in Italy is sometimes different than what you see in external countries. What the investors look for from the companies here, because there is a little bit more of a risk aversion due to kind of the stage of where investors are in the kind of startup cycle. You potentially will have other opportunities externally, but also the terms that you have with investors. I think, one thing that you see kind of going to the point about investors need to be good friends with the startuppers they also need to make sure that they're looking out for the best, the best success in the long term for the startuppers, which means, not taking a massive amount of equity so that their cap table is completely diluted and makes it very difficult for them to raise later on. And if you are raising money from both international investors and domestic investors, you're able to bring some of these best practices and best terms towards your term sheets, towards your cap table. And just like the startuppers will continue to mature, the investors in the Italian ecosystem, I think, will continue to mature to understand what's the best way to work with startups to help them actually be successful in the long term.
Okay, Tarek, thank you so much. And now we will have our next section. You're welcome. Italian founders and CXOs, and they all have the same question, which is, what is the most interesting challenge that your startup has overcome? And our first speaker in this section will be Danila de Stefano, founder and CEO of Unobravo.
Hi, Adam.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you. It's pleasure to talk to you too. So yeah, what is the most interesting challenge that you've ever had? And you and the other speakers will have 1 minute 45 seconds to answer this question.
All right. When you did this question, I was thinking about the challenges, and I think the biggest one is the transition from startup to scale up, because it's something that you don't think about when you start. You don't think about how complex it will be when you will start to pass from 5 people working to 50 people working and 100 people working. So I think the biggest challenge that I'm facing now is to manage a company which is totally different from even just 6 months ago. So scaling up means that you need to grow very fast. And if you want to do so, you will need to know that it won't be easy. And for now, I'm still facing what it means to keep the high quality of the therapy that I want to keep in my company, because we provide high quality online therapy. And to do so, it means that you need to employ many people and to manage many people and to make sure that the quality is still very high. So this is my biggest challenge. And I know that is a challenge that many scale up have.
Grazie. And next up, we have Gabriele, co-founder and CEO of Tutored.
Yeah. Hi, Adam. Do you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'm Gabriele Giugliano. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tutored, two-sided platform that allows students to meet companies and get hired. About your question, I think that, yeah, we faced many challenges during these years, but I think that one of the most significant challenge was changing our structure after the pivot. In fact, Tutor was born in 2014 with an idea of business about private lessons and sharing notes, while in 2018, we end up launching recruiting platform devoted to university students. So, restructuring the team and especially redesigning the product was super challenging, especially this year because we increased a lot. But I think that it was our turning point. Nowadays, we are a community composed of 200,000 students in Italy, and there are hundreds of companies that use our technology to attract young talents. And the challenge that we have now is to expand our business worldwide. And I think that, it is an important lesson here for the Italian entrepreneurs that if you want to create something here, sounds good, but it's very important, in my opinion, to create something that is immediately aligned with the international market request in order to go faster. We all know that it's very important to go fast in our world, in the startup ecosystem. So I think that it's very important at this point. And yeah, so thanks for listening and enjoying the event. Thanks.
Thank you. And now Mirko, founder and CEO of the Data Appeal Company. So what is the most interesting challenge that your startup has had? Thank you.
The most interesting challenging is to be alive in Italy. We started 7 years ago, and we started in a very difficult sectors because we started using deep tech, especially artificial intelligence, to process data. And today, we enlarge what we actually started doing 7 years ago, but it's not easy to position a tech startup using AI in the Italian. Everything changes very fast when we was able to raise our first round from international investors, and after that everything changes also in Italy, because our first round we was able to make our first Series A, and then after that we accelerate till the exit. I don't know if you know, guys, but we made an exit couple of months ago, and we sold the company to a listed company, an Italian company, for roughly $20 million. So it's not easy in Italy, and multiply the profit it's possible to do even from the same startup, same multiplication factors than other parts of Europe, especially the north of Europe. But we did it, and the most important effort for us was to find the talents. And even from the talent perspective, so find a talented guy in technology was surprisingly easy in some part of Italy.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go on to the next speaker for now, which is Sabino, co-founder, funding and strategy officer at Credimi.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Adam. Well, it's a tough question to answer. There have been many challenges in this year. I would rather say that the biggest one has always been, in any phase, the startup phase, and also now scaling up, anything related to talent attraction, talent retention. I think it's a key challenge any young company face. So it's probably the most important one for the success of a company, whatever you have to do. When you are designing your product, if you are deciding to launch a new one, or even if you are pivoting your activities. So I would say that that is very important to find the right component of the initial team, and to better understand how to evolve the organization during the life of the company, to be sure to keep attracting the best people and keep improving the quality of the company.
Thank you, Sabino. And next up, we have Simona, a co-founder and CEO of the Copenhagen Institute of Interaction Design.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Simona, I'm sitting in Copenhagen actually, and very tough question you ask. And I've been thinking, it wasn't an easy one to answer. And my comment is that I think often we overcame challenges when we were not so aware of the challenges themselves. So I think the most successful phases have been when you just go with the flow without realizing the risks and really being aware of the challenge. And I'll tell the story of the very beginning, which is probably when we overcame the challenge of moving from having a big dream to actually making it a reality. And the big dream was to create a center of excellence, an incubation, a school, a place where people from all over the world would come to Copenhagen to work on interaction design, so the design of product and services in a digital way, so digital transformation. So we had this big vision. We could imagine the place, but we had no funding. We were 6 people with a dog, nothing was, no resources, nothing. So we decided to use our own tools, which are like prototyping and making and learning by doing. So just do it as a way to move from this dream to reality. So we built a prototype of a website saying, this place doesn't exist, but if it existed, we would love it for it to be a place where people from all over the world come and study, a place where companies can come and do projects with us, and a place where, you know, research could happen. And so 187 people applied to the school that didn't exist. Philips reached out wanting to be our first client, and we were invited to join some European Union projects. So in 3 months, we set up like funding and everything just because we dare to put out there the vision in a website. But again, saying that this place was actually just a prototype. So probably we would have had more challenges in raising funds with the Danish government if we had gone through a more traditional, fundraising and budgeting and Excel spreadsheet. So that was when we showed all the people who applied, the list of the people who applied and the faculty who wanted to come and teach and so on. We just got funding quite easily, actually, because the content was already there. The outcome was already there. So.
Well, congratulations, Simona. And
this is like 17 years ago. Then, many other challenges, but I think that's maybe the most inspiring story.
Yeah, and sometimes if the idea is good, it's enough. You don't even need to have anything ready. So really nice story. Thank you.
Always be honest, though. We did say this doesn't exist. We're just dreaming it.
No, you're actually right, and yeah, it's actually very common. So to not be honest, and in the long run, it doesn't work out. Thank you very much, and all the best in Denmark. And next up, folks, we have Fabrizio, founder of Bozul and To Watch.
Hello, hi Adam, hi everyone. I kindly agree with Simona that, of course, over the year we faced many challenges, but probably the most interesting one is, let's say, bet on the right vision and be right. So I think for both my companies, we start with the vision in a market that didn't exist at the time, and we teach the market, help to create new demand, and especially in our case, we help to clear new digital profession. When we started with Bozul and we talked about influencer as, let's say, a professionist, I think that marketing manager were looking at us like, I don't know, crazy or something like that. And probably similar, it's happening now or happened 1 year ago when we started with To Watch and we were talking about gaming and professional gamer and esport market. Well, with Bozul, we managed in 5 years to become the fastest growing company in Italy in 2018 and the 19th for growth in Europe. And I am quite convinced that the gaming trend will be booming as the influencer one, and all the major corporate will have their own gaming strategies and dedicated team. And we are really highly betting on this. So totally agree that probably this is the most interesting challenges that we have overcame.
Okay, thank you very much, Fabrizio. And now we go to our next section, which is with Italian angel investors and VCs. Gianluca is our first speaker, president of the Italian Tech Alliance. He is also chairman and partner at Primo Ventures. And the question for everybody in this section is, given your experience, what tips do you have for Italian startups and scale-ups getting funding in 2022?
Well, thanks, Alan. I think that it's an exciting moment for startups. I think that, well, simply, I think the bar is going up and up. So the bar is going up means that there is definitely much more money available. We have seen rounds that in 15 years of practice of venture in Italy, we had never seen in the past, rounds of 30, 40, 50, 100 million. We've even seen a $500 million deal this spring. So this means that, let's say, you can raise as a startup your ambition level, which is absolutely necessary these days. Which was maybe a bit more difficult. Again, unfortunately, yes, I've seen the suggestion of going global is, of course, all our startups, we want them to go global, but it's not easy, sometimes starting from here in many ways. Having said that, so the bar is raising, so you should raise your ambition, but also consider that there is much more competition, much more qualified. As investor, we're just starting to invest our new fund, the Primo Digital, and we just completed this Friday the first deal. And we do see a lot of exciting deals around. So there are many different options of investing. So again, you know, it's an exciting moment, but I think that if you're serious about what you're doing, which I believe all the startups here are, you should again think, you know, strategically in terms of, you know, raising the bar, and but consider that the risk is going to be higher as well, and the challenge.
Grazie, Gianluca. And next up, we have Stefania, who is Managing Director of Angels for Women.
Thanks a lot, Adam, and hello to everyone. So on my point of view as Managing Director of Angels for Women, and as who came before me already said, the data show that the current year is having the same extraordinary hype of 2021. So let's hope that and everything is going in the same direction. But we know that we are navigating in complex waters. So my suggestion is that we need to be prepared to give that startup give demonstration of the ability of validate their business model and their ability to monetize and monetization. So raise money when you need, not when you can, and manage the capital wisely, make it last, and invest in monetization as fast as possible. Gain the investor confidence. From an investor point of view, as business angel point of view, are constantly in search of interesting business model and great committed teams. But these starve of good ideas and teams might accelerate the request for startup. But from a startup point of view, let's say that my suggestion is to check first with informally with some business angel to understand if you are ready. And from a scale-up point of view, remember the investor wants to be at your side. So transparency will have the positive result. And now specific advice from a women point of view, as we noticed and we know from data again that female founder and co-founder tend to be less confident in showing the best scenario possible. So in this situation, my suggestion would be go and show and make it trustworthy based on your knowledge, on your know-how, and make the best out of it.
Okay, grazie Stefania. And next up, we have Novika, a General Partner and Managing Director of Add Value and StarTech Ventures.
Hello there. So to answer your question, I would basically say that we are having two vehicles. We are having Add Value, which is a club deal vehicle. So we are using club deals, and this is to answer your question. We are using club deals whenever we are speaking about fast turnaround, when the cycle is very fast. So if the company is maybe in their last round, or if they are reaching to profitability, or if it's what it is, you know, so they will not need add-ons or follow-ons, we're doing club deals. Usually getting out in 2 or 3 years. In case when we need to do the investment that's going to last longer, in this case, we're using StartTech Ventures, which is a fund, which is a part of the answer to your question. So to finally answer directly your question about tips to Italian startups and scale-ups, I would have to say that after 19 years in the United States, particularly in Silicon Valley, there is a very big difference between what is there and what is in Italy. So that's why I would give advice around something what I've seen. It is different. In Silicon Valley, it's much easier to get the early money, particularly if you're an early stage startup, if you're going after your seed stage or something like that. In Italy, it's not, you know, so you have to accommodate to the specifics of the market, you know. So a couple of inputs I would give related to that is go early with the government money, you know. For a difference from US, there is a lot of grants, subsidies, one-offs, and so on. There is a European Union, then there is Italy, then there is Lombardy, then there is Milan, then there is a specific to this and that, you know, Politecnico. So I would suggest to startups to go as early as possible to government money. Why as early as possible? Because it takes time. You know, it's a lot of paperwork and it might take 6 months, but that money is much more readily available than what it is in US, where that job is done by private venture capital funds or seeders. You know, that would be the first point. The second point, you know, on the startups in general, I suggest you going to friends and family and fools if you want. You know, many of the Italian venture capital funds that in the past were supporting the pre-seed or early stage, they moved up the chain, you know. So now if you want to get the pre-seed money or seed money, you really need to get it from a family, you need to get it from a high net worth individual, for entrepreneur or something like that. If you are the scale up, okay, there is actually a lot of VCs in Italy and they're doing wonderful job. But the key thing with them is that you guys, scale uppers, you really need to provide them regular updates. Even before you will need the next round, Series B, Series C, just make sure that you know who are the VCs and make sure that you're providing them a monthly update so that they know who you are and what do you do. My last point is, if you want to search internationally, please don't download the list of VCs and contact everybody, because you'll be disregarded. I suggest you are going after VCs that are doing exactly what you're doing and in exactly that round that you're doing. So don't go to the late stage venture capital fund if you are doing the pre-early seed, you know. So at that point, just do the targeted research of international VCs.
Thank you, Novika. Thank you. And next up, we have Anna De Stefano.
Here I am. Hi, Adam. Yes, right. Searching for the bottom. Well, thank you for the invitation and very interesting panel. I have to say that I won't say that much new things because a lot of my thoughts have already been shared in a wonderful way from the previous panelist. So then to answer to your questions, also to me, I would say 3 main points for raising fundings in 2022. One is, the first one is make yourself be known and go know people. I explain what I'm meaning. This year we're starting going back to the physical world, to personal events, to personal encounters. So I think that startups should think of going to these events, to go to events where there are the possibilities of knowing other investors or business angels or even other startups, because the funding round starts much earlier than the actual funding, the actual round. It starts, as also other panelists said before, it starts even before getting known, so that people can get know what you do, who you are, what are you going to do. And on the other side, you also start knowing more about the ecosystem and the people that are in these, also the different VCs and business angels. So it takes time for a round. So start early, going around, networking to understand the ecosystem, in order that when you will need the money, it will be not easier, but you can have you can be more focused on the people that you think that are useful for you. The second advice, in my opinion, is put uncertainty in your strategy, or on the other side, say in other words, show investors that you have considered the uncertainty as one of the variables to manage. I mean, and explain. Of course, uncertainty is part of the business life, but I think that these years and times are much different from the previous ones, and the degree of uncertainty is deeper and bigger. So what I would say is that I think that investors would appreciate business models, business plans, or a team, especially team that shows, that understands that there is this quite big amount of uncertainty in the future, and are ready to have, let's say, a plan B, or are ready to manage according to scenario planning, so that we can see that the team is, of course, cannot predict the future, but has put in place activities, or knows that it has to be fast and to adapt fast to new scenarios, and there's already some ideas on how to cope with some problems if in the case this will arise. And so in certain ways, sort of maturity from the team about the dealing with unpredictable events or big scenario uncertainties. And the last point also is more, I see that other panelists already mentioned it. Choose your investors. As I was saying, network with the investors before, so that you can already, let's say, focus and make a list of your preferred ones. But also then when you're negotiating, try to find the right investors that really align with you, with your values, with your company, with what you want to do. So someone that shares your idea, your opinion, your vision, that is in a, let's say, in a win-win game, so where also the term sheet is not that heavy, where the governance is something that is reasonable for you and adaptable for you, and also that can give you support, can give you also some smart money, some introduction, some opening of business, because probably this is the best kind of investors for a startup, not just one that gives money, but someone that in a certain way shares your project and helps you help succeed in this project. And your success, the success of the startup, is the success also of the VC, of the investors, not the other way around, not split apart.
Anna, thank you so much. And next up, we have Nico Sika, founder and managing partner of Grapho Ventures.
Thanks, Adam. My suggestion is very simple. Consider the possibility to go public, also as a startup, also as a scale-up, and to go public early. Here in Italy, we have a segment in the stock exchange that is called Euronext Growth Milan, that is designed exactly for scale-ups and for small and medium businesses. And within this segment, we also have a segment called Euronext Growth Milan Pro. It is the professional segment for younger companies. But if you don't want to consider the Italian option, outside Italy, as an example in France, there is another segment that is called Euronext Access for startups and new companies. And more or less in all the European countries, you have, let's say, this segment within the stock exchange that is dedicated to tech scale-ups and tech startups. Okay, so have a look at this option, which is not yet very popular in the tech scene, at least for young companies, but it is a real one. So a possible opportunity for you. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Nico. And then finally, we have Simone, managing partner of the Synergia Venture Fund at Synergia Capital SGR.
Thank you, Adam, for organizing. I would say that I struggle to say something original, but I will try. I don't have a general answer to your question. I will share my view based on our fund investment strategy, which is we invest on Series A onwards. We don't invest less than 3 million euros. And we are focused on Italian business-to-business startups. So my point are not in any particular order. I will start with a team. It's better to have a company made by a team of founders and key people rather than a founder solo company. It's important that the team is mastering the technology at the core of the startup business. Okay, so if you are in the AI, natural language generation, natural language processing, and so on, this doesn't mean that you have to invent some new algorithm, but you have to be very aware and updated on what's going on in the market. A clarity of the business model. Revenues are important, but more important to us are the abilities and the vision to execute the business plan, a clear idea on the exit. Startup founders and key people of startups must understand that funds sooner or later need to exit from the investment, okay? So this must be very clear. A scalable business model to foreign countries, I wouldn't say worldwide, I will be very specific. If you start in Italy, in your business model, in the next 3 up to 4 years, you have to have at least 45% of revenue coming from other countries. And opening in having partners and not just investors. It may change by fund to fund, but in our case, we like to become partner to support the scale up. So quarterly report for us are not enough. And again, about the startup and fund relationship, founder must be aware that pre-money evaluation is not the most important things to agree on when negotiating with an investor. So if you are close on your idea, right or wrong of pre-money, you may lose some opportunity. Last but not least, I can fail to mention the importance of the awareness among key people, not only the CEO, of cash measuring cash consumption, and obviously the ability to raise cash for follow-up runs. Summarizing, team, business model, razor-shaped execution.
Okay, thank you very much, Simone. And then we go on to our next section with Samantha Richardson of Twilio. And Samantha, we're going to talk about customer engagements.
Hi, yeah, great. Nice to meet you all. Good to be here. Good to see you, Adam.
Yeah, you too. We hosted events in London last week, which went very successfully with Twilio, which was really good to see. So I suppose in terms of our conversation then, customer engagement, what is the best way to drive growth in a startup?
Yeah, it's all about the communication, which I guess is what you'd expect me to say, but it really is. It's about how you communicate, when you communicate, to really start building that relationship with customers. You know, we always say that we're in the relationship economy now, and I think that that's absolutely right. You know, it's really hard to attract customers and costly, even online. You know, the cost prices have gone up about 50% to recruit and acquire new customers. So keeping customers, keeping that relationship with them is vital, and only comes from communicating. And you know, we have so many channels to communicate on now. There's a whole number of different ways that you can do that, but I think being very intentional about how you build that engagement is really important for the continued growth of the organization, and something that probably gets overlooked as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I see a lot of startups acquire customers, and that's fantastic. And they look at those numbers only, but they never look at how many customers are renewing month after month. Do you think startups overlook retention too much, and why is that exactly?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, again, it probably depends on what investors are interested in. We know that acquisition numbers can sound really appealing, but I think, again, if you're going to sustain that growth, we've seen, we work with all sorts of organizations. We work with a huge amount of startups, and then hold their hands really and follow them through to become more, you know, larger, maturer organizations. And I think what we see is when they hit that point of maturity, their costs are, you know, and their profits are really being eaten into, because they're still having to constantly acquire customers rather than have built that relationship and keep customers. And especially in a digital world, it's like, it's a very transactional and transparent process, isn't it? You know, just buying something from somebody and then we can just move on to the next and next, whether you're B2B or B2C. So yeah, I think it's easy to get carried away thinking this is fantastic, look at the number of acquisitions we've got, but really you need those markers in place. You know, are these still the same customers that are here down the line that are sticking with us, that have got that 3-month, 6-month, 12-month repeat purchase engagement. And that's the bit that we kind of always advise people to look on just as much.
So do you think there are false positives then? Basically, startups have the statistics on customer growth and they just look at that and they don't look at the retention that they have as well?
Yeah, we've certainly seen that happen. Again, it can be so distracting because the numbers are exciting.
Yeah.
No, and it's what we're all going for, right? Attracting new customers. But yeah, it can be very distracting. The other thing I think as well is that whilst you're focusing on the kind of acquisitions, you can, it's quite easy to take your eye off things that perhaps aren't working so well within your process. You know, customers will always give you fantastic feedback one way or another as to what you're not doing so well and why they're leaving you. And I think, again, if you're only looking at that acquisition process and onboarding, then it's easy to then not be looking at why customers are leaving and the other end of the spectrum, leaving or just not repeat contact or no repeat purchasing. And your engagement is a great indicator of that. You know, are they opening up? Are they responding to you? Are you able to have you got any kind of communication with them? I think it's all a really good way to kind of preempt perhaps some of the issues that can come down the line.
Now, in this conference, we have lots of B2B startups, less B2C startups. Actually, the biggest group is B2B and B2C. So in terms of customer engagement, what trends do you see? What is the best way to contact customers who are either new or existing?
I would say the biggest trend that we see is the blurring of lines between B2B and B2C communication. So I think pre-COVID, it was very segmented. You know, it was, if you're a B2B customer, then you're probably going to prefer email or a phone call. But what we've seen is that now many of our B2B customers are kind of building fantastic chat platforms and engagement platforms that replicate WhatsApp, and actually using WhatsApp as well. But like WhatsApp must be a weekly conversation that we have with customers, and thinking about how they can use it in both that B2B and B2C space. And there is a good reason for that, which is that it's really easy to reach people. It's asynchronous, and excuse me, people are sneezing, and also allergy time, and also you know, you can put a lot of automation on it as well, and triage, and it has a very similar benefit as setting up IVRs on calls, for example. So the blurring, that's the biggest trend that we see.
Yeah, I mean, let's say 5 years ago or 3 years ago in Asia, you could WhatsApp people in business and it was normal, but in Europe, no, don't do that, you know, stay away from my phone. But I think that's changing a lot. Would you say that, I'm looking at the poll here, obviously we have more B2B people, but LinkedIn I can see is the most popular form of contacting customers here. Do you see that growing as well?
We don't see that at the moment. We don't see that very much. It's probably indicative of the kind of people, you know, the sort of stage that people are at within their startup growth. So it's not something that comes up that often for us. That said, in terms of marketing and approaching people, I can see that from a marketing automation perspective, then yes, that probably will increase more on that side than on the straightforward engagement. That said, you know, Messenger is still being used a lot for communication, still social media, you know, again, all of these channels are still being used for B2B and increasingly for B2B as people try and reach customers where they are in the most convenient way.
Yeah, and I'll just say very quickly before we end, I used to work for Duck City in Torino, which is an Italian startup. So hello, Duck City, if any of you are here. And yeah, I remember one time we did an event and we contacted 200 people afterwards, but we actually decided to call 200 people and we set up over 100 meetings. So I do think probably the telephone is the most underused way to contact people. Very quickly, would you agree or disagree?
I think for resolving problems, for having that really great kind of slower relationship building engagement, the phone is overrated. I think for as long as I've been working in and around customer engagement and contact centers, people have been predicting the demise of phone calls, and they've never quite happened. And I'm not sure they will either. Because if you really want to make that human connection with somebody, then that's still the best route.
Okay, Samantha, thank you so much. And now we go on to our next sponsor, which is Personio. And we're going to have a chat about recruitment and human resources. So Chema, I know you're connected. Could you briefly introduce yourself and say what Personio does?
Sure, Adam, and thanks for having me. So I lead Southern Europe at Personio. Personio is a company founded in Munich, so a European company. And our platform, what it does is it helps SMEs, so small, medium enterprises in Europe, to help manage their employees, all the things related to the life cycle, from attracting talent to developing talent to managing talent. And by doing that, we aim to, on the one hand, save time from HR professionals and all the management in the company with operational tasks, to then focus on the things that really matter about employees, which is things like development, career progression, retaining talent, which is a huge concern right now, and making their business more operational and efficient by focusing on what matters most, which is the employees.
Yeah, and what I like about Personio is a startup. It was founded, I think, 6 years ago, and in just 6 years, it went from 2 or 3 co-founders to 1,000 employees at the moment, I think.
Even more, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I LinkedIn pages, you never know how reliable they are. So I suppose obviously COVID, the world is coming back to normal, and there's a lot of talk about attracting talent, but also retaining it. What is your thought on all of this?
There is, so the data that I'm going to say doesn't come from us. It comes from the people that we surveyed in terms of HR directors, HR professionals, and employees. So I invite everyone to check the report and the study that we published back in March. And it's actually concerning to see that 46% of employees are looking to move jobs within the next 12 months. The pandemic has really created a massive change in mindset, and now employees are looking at other things like, work-life, balance, flexibility at work, flexibility around time, making time to be with their family. So this pandemic has hit on the personal side of employees and what they consider as valuable besides job progression and career progression. So there is a risk now, a real risk of us losing our best talent if we don't really focus on retaining, understanding what is valuable for them after this pandemic and into the future, and then taking the right actions to retain that talent.
And employee strategy is a big buzzword nowadays in the startup world. Can you briefly explain why HR is focusing so much on it?
Because they need to understand now why, what's happening with their employees, what are the areas that, they can do in order to retain them. And so up until now, it was somewhat easy to do that if you were in the office and you had this daily contact with your employees, but now the world has changed. Now there is remote work, there is hybrid work. There are, you don't get to see your employees as often as you did. So, there is a real need for mechanisms that help you understand how your employees are doing, what is their mental health, what is their morale, their motivation, what is going on at home with them. The reasons that people say they're looking to change jobs is, stressful working environments, not enough appreciation of the work they do, the lack of career progression. So those things, businesses right now need tools to help them understand that when they don't have this direct contact with employees.
Yeah, and I've actually posted a couple of polls there that we can get opinions from. But for now, my question is, not enough startups, I think, are using digital tools. They still use Excels, they still use a lot of manual things in all areas of operating a business. When it comes to HR, what digital tools can be used?
Well, so obviously Personio is, we're aiming to be the tool for companies to manage all aspects of their employees, right? However, our aim is not to become, we know that there is no one tool that can do everything and do everything, you know, in the best possible way. So while we focus on the core of managing your employees, right, understanding who they are, what their aspirations are, OKRs, you know, development, performance, then the most operational things like vacations, absences, etc. We also aim to integrate with tools that, you know, for instance, deliver benefits for employees, right? Like, you know, mental health support, or, you know, tools that allow you to give them flexible benefits, for instance. So our platform also has a marketplace, and our intention is to create this ecosystem of apps that, having Personio at the center, can also enable workflows. And, you know, the best example, I guess, is if you're hiring someone, HR is the first one that knows every single detail about that candidate and that employee. So when that person joins your company, why do you need to go and recreate the same process for account creation, for benefits, for IT accounts, for, you know, transport cards, etc., if you already have all that information and you can replicate to other platforms? So that's the that's what we're aiming to be, right? The center of everything related to people.
And finally, if you have 1, 2, 3 tips for retaining talent, what would they be?
So the first one is to really understand your employees. So make sure that your HR department has time to talk to your employees, see how they are, you know, check on them after, you know, this pandemic. That's especially important. The second thing is that make sure that you have then a strategy to adapt to the new normal. This environment we live in, it's an equilibrium, right? Before it was like, go to the office, do your job. Then we completely switched to the other extreme, which is be at home and do your work from there. And now you have to be in this equilibrium of, it's a hybrid world, right? So unless you make efforts every day to understand that equilibrium, you won't be able to manage your employees correctly.
Okay, Gemma, well, thank you very much. And what I can do now on the topic of HR is actually share some poll results that we asked during our conversation. Should companies post salaries and job adverts? 75% of you say yes. Is your startup more or less efficient when remote working? Lots of you say yes, it's more efficient. A favorite thing about remote working, increased productivity, larger hiring pool. Least favorite thing about remote working, employee isolation and lack of relationships among co-workers. So that's our first set of questions. The recruitment questions that I asked about, do you do your recruitment process in-house? Yes, the vast majority of you do it. Is your HR and recruitment strategy efficient? Yes, most of you say, but not very. And finally, what is the hardest role to find the right person for? Engineering. That's no surprise at all. So we now go on to our next section, which is with Italian entrepreneurs who are in the United States. And our first section, first speaker will be Luca, chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in Italy. He's also managing partner of Carnaluti Law Firm. And our question for you is, what can Italian startups learn from the United States?
Good morning, Adam. Nice to see you. Such a good shape. And hello to all your audience. Yes, of course. One of the latest trends that we see is that Italian startups becoming more courageous, and instead of accepting the idea to do their own startups locally in Italy, which has obviously some advantages but also some disadvantages, decided to go to decided to go west in this case, and decided to go to America and establish their own ideas, either on the East Coast or even further on the West Coast. Obviously, we all know very well that there is a cultural element to the success of startups, and that entails not just with the development of a certain idea, but to the fact that you find a hospitable environment of experienced professional venture capitalists in particular who can intercept a good idea and support it financially. Obviously, there are some VCs in Italy as well, but compared to the number of opportunities that you may find on the US market, that is 1 to 100. And therefore, it is very important that Italian startups, as well as any other continental European startup, seriously consider the Go West opportunity and break ties with your homeland and try to intercept the real opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Luca. And next up, we have Alberto, President of the Italy America Chamber of Commerce. Alberto is also co-founder of Piazza Italia Markets. What can Italian startups learn from the United States?
Well, I apologize, I can't be on video right now.
It's okay.
So they should learn a couple of things. Look at got a few points. The new normal is forcing all of us to find a different place of connection, not only virtually but also physically. It may be not the traditional office that we used to, but has to be a place where people could build a community, and the community is what we're trying to do with Piazza Italia. So it is a place for startups in New York where you could get together, you could have your office, but it's much more than a co-working space. It gives you the possibility of interacting with a company that shares common value for all of them, and the possibility also to take advantage of services that are available for a company that is start to venture in the United States. So the continuity of what you're doing and the continuity of your presence in the United States is important. I think the time where you have some sort of initial trip of a mission that you want to accomplish in a workshop for a couple of days, and then you go back to your own country and you follow up are basically over. So we're trying to create a protected environment where everybody could help each other. And even in the tagline that we ended up choosing is stronger together, because we believe that we make ourselves stronger together, selling the core values of Made in Italy, or the core value of our creativity. And so it is working very well. We came up with a package that is related to startups. And it started from $500 a month, giving you a place to work in New York and a prestigious address in New York City, and also the possibility of sharing experience and mentoring all around you. So we believe that the new normal, like everybody is talking about, is not only going back, like a previous guest said, not going back to what it was, a traditional approach to the office, but nobody has a precise idea how the new office will shape up. And the new office will shape up, in my opinion, with precise value that you want to share in the moment that you go to the office. So differently from now, you really have to have a reason to be part of a community and going back to the office. Otherwise, you better stay home. So we see with the young people, I think that they don't want to go back to the office, but they don't like going back to the office if I just go into the office to sit in front of a computer. So this is something that everybody's trying to stay away. And on the other side, if we give them a precise reason or additional value, additional content of being part of a community, they may be willing to go back to the office multiple times during the week, maybe not every day, but I think there is a precise indication that you go working virtually when is something that it doesn't require a specific interaction when it comes to value to be shared. And somebody mentioned before a phone call that is a precise indication you need a different kind of contact, and that is probably when you need a phone call, when you need a human connection. And we hopefully with Piazza Italia we bring to the Italian Chamber of Commerce a different advantage for any kind of startups.
Okay, Alberto, grazie. And now we have our final 4 speakers, and the question for them, they are all in the United States. What's different about doing business in the United States? So first up, we have Giuseppe, co-founder of Milli.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Adam, for having us. Yes, I prepared a couple of thoughts on this. I would say 3 main things stood out to me when I thought about this. One is that people in the US are generally more open to listen. So you'll always, or very often, have a chance to at least pitch your idea, your solution, even when you don't have an established relationship with your prospective customers. So they might say no straight away, but at least they give you the 20-second, 30-second time to pitch, as opposed to London or Europe, where I felt you need more relational connections to get through the first step. In the US, there is more openness there. Second thing I would say is that things can move a lot faster. My experience with capital raise as a startup was that sometimes with angels in New York, it felt like dealing with mini VCs, in that the process is very structured, very transparent, you know where you stand. And once the decision is made, you get a response very quickly, and the money also transfer very quickly, as opposed to Europe, where we had some situations where things were dragged on, and it was less smooth. The third thing I would say, talent recruitment. I speak for the New York market experience. It's very tough. We thought it would be easier, but we had to, it took a lot longer to recruit even like entry-level people, and it was more expensive than we thought. So these would be the 3 things I would say: general openness, things moving faster, and a tough market for employers.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Really good points. And next up, we have Alberto Stocchino, CEO and founder of Perceptive.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks, Adam. I have to agree with Giuseppe and what he says. I also happen to be in the middle of like the weirdest venture culture in the world here in Silicon Valley. So a little bit, this is a different place, not just to Italy, but to kind of everywhere. So I mean, there's the full venture culture, the idea of like risk capital, and that propagates to hires and employees as well. There's the understanding of equity and the understanding of opportunities, high risk, high reward, with the also limited kind of downsides. So that is very hard to find in general in the world, but very hard in Italy. Or I think things are actually getting better. So there is that. There's the extreme power of networks. It is true that you don't need to have a name. I mean, well, that helps. But connections are really powerful here too, but you can create connections. That's the thing. So you're in a place, and it's all about connections in the end, actually. But at least here you have an opportunity to establish and to create them anew. And so be able to be part of networks. And so to the extent it is possible, I mean, that would be very key also to create in Italy. So I also agree the speed, things move like instantly, and the exposure to markets, and talking about labor markets as well as like just customer markets, as well as like vendor supply chains and so forth, is very, very easily accessible here. So I feel like these are unique, and I see in my view like opportunities here.
Okay, Alberto, thank you. And next up we have Andrea, President, CEO, and co-founder of Cloud for We.
Thank you, Adam.
Great. And did I pronounce that right? Cloud for We or Cloud for Why?
It's in Europe, it's Cloud for We. In the US, it's Cloud for Why. But it's fine.
Yeah.
I have different opinion from Giuseppe, Alberto. I'm here from like since 2014. Our company has a B2B software as a service enterprise. We have many global customers, We have investor from Italy and from Silicon Valley. Business, it's hard everywhere, no? Especially when you jump on large enterprise. There's not many difference between like Guess or Prada or Stellantis and Ford. I see really there is no same context that you need to navigate. The main difference that a business is it's bigger. At that point, you need to be ready to scale. This means that, especially in Italy, you have just few large companies. You don't have enough volume. If you build traction and product fit, you need to go over these few companies. And when you jump from Italy to other countries, it becomes really hard not to localize yourself. If you are in the US, it's clear that you have traction, you reach your product fit, you build your scalable execution. It's easy, it's easier to become market leader. You cannot be market leader from Italy in software as a service. There's no one company that come from Italy or from country like a secondary country in Europe is market leader. I see there the main difference. There's bigger market. There's it's the same hard to the business, but you build foundation to scale, because if you're market fit, you can become leader from US and not from Italy.
Okay, Andrea, thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
You're very welcome, Prego. And we have our final speaker, last but not least, Emil. Where are you joining us from at the moment?
Hi, I'm in Milan right now. I arrived from Chicago this morning.
Emil, you're president and co-CEO of Opiquad. And our question for you is, what's different about doing business in the United States?
So I would say, following the path of most of my colleagues already said, I would just say curiosity. Americans are more curious. The American market is more curious. And by curiosity, I mean being ready to put your money where your mouth is. The second thing, big difference is the different forms of available capital, both in terms of client and financing. Whereas in the Italian market, you have two other great characteristics that I think fit very well. One is creativity. Italians are more creative in this way, especially when it comes to SMEs. Italian small and medium enterprise businesses, in my experience, are on average better companies than American SMEs. The other difference, though, in Italy, the issue is that you always have this situation where you have capital staying in a family rather than a company. So you have rich family, poor company kind of situation very, very often throughout history, at least we've seen this. So the common mistakes that I have seen in the American market is one to think that it's one market where it's not. It's very different if you're in Chicago, the suburbs of Chicago, Los Angeles, or Alabama. So you have to find your market. And the other mistake is not understanding the importance of marketing and communication. Because Americans are curious and they have this capital available to communicate it properly is way more important than in other ways. Bottom line, I think, is that if we consider markets as neighborhoods, if the creative guy can get out of his neighborhood and get into the neighborhood where people are curious, and he can market his product and idea properly with a good marketing strategy, he can access this capital, and then you have it. It's going to be successful.
Okay, Emil, well, thank you very much. It's a great way to close the conference. Well, look, I just want to say grazie mille to all the people who came here today, whether you're in Italy or elsewhere. As I mentioned, to close the conference, we don't want to just have 90 minutes of value. We want to have one whole year of connections. So if you visit startupnetwork.eu/Italy, you can see the list of our speakers if you want to reach out to any of them. You can see our sponsors. You can see our online community for Italian startups and investors and European startups and investors. And I hope to connect with you all. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. It's really a pleasure to have you today. È stato un piacere. Grazie mille a tutte le persone qua. Ci vediamo a Roma e a Milano. Ciao.